nighttime, breakfast time if you're on the West Coast. But yeah, once again, just share your location in the chat. And welcome everyone to the Clear MBA Essay Insight webinar series. We're going to get started in just a minute. Thanks to everyone who's sharing. I cannot keep up with the the locations here, but I'm seeing people as far east as maybe Vietnam and as far west as certainly California, while China. Yeah, so there's folks from across the globe. Really appreciate everyone who's joining us today, making time to do this. So we'll just wait another minute or so to get everyone on board. Again, thanks for sharing your location in the chat. I should mention at the end of this session, each of our panelists, who you're going to meet in a moment, are going to take time to go into an individual Zoom where they'll answer your specific questions about their program or their application process. So definitely stick around, and we'll actually get you links to those individual sessions at the end of the main discussion here today. So stay tuned for that. I think we can get started. We're at the top of the hour now, so let's get rolling. So once again, welcome everyone. I'm Graham. I'm the co-founder of ClearAdmit. I'm going to moderate today's panel. That's really all you need to know about me. I really want to focus on our guests today, and I'm going to start with just a quick intro for each of our panelists. I'm thrilled to start here. We're going to welcome Cindy Millette, and she is a Senior Associate Director for Full-Time MBA Admissions at Berkeley Haas. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. Next up, we've got Eddie Aspey, who's the Executive Director of Admissions and Scholarship at Cornell's SC Johnson College of Business. Hey, Eddie.
Hey, Graham, and hi to everyone joining. Thanks so much.
Yeah, it's great to have you back as well. Next up, we've got Pat Harrison. Pat is Director of Admissions, Evaluation, and Yield at the Tuck School at Dartmouth. Pat, welcome.
Thanks, Graham. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. Next up, we've got Mandy McGuire, who is the Associate Director of Admissions at Duke's Fuqua School of Business. Hi, Mandy.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here today. We're excited to get to hang out with you for a little bit.
Yeah, definitely appreciate you making time, Mandy. And then last but not least, we have Megan Lewis, who is the Senior Associate Director of MBA Admissions at the Foster School of Business at University of Washington. Hi, Megan.
Hello, joining you from Seattle. Great to be here. And thank you, Graham.
Yeah, no, thanks for starting your day with us. It's a little bit earlier there than it is on the East Coast, so appreciate it. So let's dive in. What we're going to do today is I have a number of kind of general questions that I wanted to ask our panelists. Then we're going to dive into each school's individual essay questions and get some insight there from our panelists before we do some lightning round questions, and then we'll move into the individual breakouts. And again, we will send you links to those breakouts at the end. We don't give them to you now because we want to give our panelists a moment to jump off and get set up before we give those to you at the end. The other thing I should mention is that because we're doing breakouts at the end of this session, we ask that you kind of hold your questions for those segments at the end, rather than we won't really take any live questions during this main session. So let's dive in. I'm going to start with Cindy. We'll just go alphabetically here. So Cindy, I wanted to get an understanding of when you read essays in an application, and also like, what do you enjoy about reading essays? So when you pick up a file at Haas, what's the procedure that you're kind of following? And yeah, tell us something you enjoy.
Yeah, so I, for one, save the essays till the end. And what I do is I look through the application, starting with the resume, kind of as a snapshot of that individual, really kind of a table of contents for everything that's going on within that. So looking at academics, tests, and then looking at professional experience. So that's looking at the resume. And then I look at the essays, and I probably spend more time on the essays, and I really enjoy them because they really give me a feel of that individual, their goals and aspirations. And that's one of the reasons why I love admissions, is I love hearing people's stories about what they want to do and then how an MBA can fit in with those aspirations.
Okay, perfect. So let's turn to Eddie. How about you? Like, when do you start looking at the essays when you're reading a file? And yeah, something you enjoy about this piece of the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's my process is pretty similar to Cindy's as well. But I think it depends on the applicant, because every application is so different. Typically, what I would do also is looking at your professional work experience first, of course, then getting into the academics, and then getting into more of your essays. and getting a sense of course, what the prompt is, and of course, what your goals are, etc. What I enjoy too is, really reading more about a candidate's passion and what's driving them to apply for an MBA. But also, I know there's so many unique prompts out there that really gives you also the opportunity of being creative as well. So, we talk about there's so many different elements of the application that allows you to really, that you have full control in. And I would say the essay is one of those portions where you have full control of really telling your story and once again, highlighting your passions.
Yeah, that's a great point. We talk a lot at ClearAdmit about, the notion that there's not a lot you can do with like your undergraduate GPA. You can't go back and, there's no time machine to go back. But, the essays are, they're absolutely your domain to kind of create in and everything. So, so it's interesting. You and Cindy have a similar process. Having done these types of sessions before, I've heard completely different ways of doing it too. So I'm going to be really curious now to hear what our other panelists say. Pat, how about you? What's the kind of order, like when do you read the essays and what do you like about reading them?
So I'm going to keep the streak going. I read the essays I follow the same path that the applicant follows as they're going through the application. So kind of reading it in that same order, but it's after I've seen the professional experience, the academic experience, and after I've seen we have a short question on goals. And so I read them after I've seen the goals question. So that brings the why MBA question. Makes more sense once you've seen that. What I like about them, and very similar answer, that's when the applicant really comes to life. There's seeing somebody's resume, seeing somebody's transcript, you get a little bit about them, but once you start hearing their passions, what gets them excited, that's when we start to get excited because we can feel your passion and your enthusiasm coming through on the page.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. It's funny, you all were talking about looking at the data forms and the kind of background information. I think for a lot of candidates, they're actually working on the essays first and leaving the data forms for the end. So I would encourage everyone tuned in to think about this fact that, what's in the data forms and the sort of preliminary materials is really important in terms of setting the stage to lead someone into the essays, at least for our first three panelists, given the order that they're saying they look at it. Mandy, at Fuqua, let's hear from you. How do you do it?
Sure, fairly similar. I'm not going to break the streak here. But I think those first pieces, the academics, the work experience, leadership and involvement, those types of sections can look fairly similar for many applicants, right? Like there might be different numbers, different years, but those areas are going to look fairly similar to the bulk of our other applicants. When we get to the essays, you really start distinguishing yourself. We see not only, your reasons for an MBA, you're being super reflective because again, you're answering different questions for all of us. And so that's really helpful for us to understand not only your fit for an MBA, but a fit for our program, right? What do you know about us? What is this really going to do for your long-term plan? Not only get an MBA, but getting an MBA here. So we want to hear that authentic voice. And I think that's what's really exciting for me when I'm reading an application and being able to see that, you jump off the page, you come to life where this is until we get the interview portion, this is that really personal piece for you. And that's really exciting for us to see and to get to hear that voice come across in word form in your application.
Got it. Yeah, I could not agree more. All right. So Megan, are you going to stick with the streak here or do you do things in a slightly different order?
My answer is it depends because at the very first read at the beginning of the application review, I'll probably look at the resume first, and then just take a quick glance at the goals essay. But before an interview, I like to really deep dive into the essays and call me the person that eats the dessert first because I go straight to the essays. And I really like the stories. I just enjoy them so much that I don't want to have to look at the resume first. So essays first, and then I find that actually gives me some good context to look at the essay or to look at the resume and know who is this person who did these things in the resume. That's I don't know, my style, I suppose. So I'm the outlier so far.
but actually, and I can't remember what school it was because we've done a number of these panels over the years, but you're not alone. Like I know there's someone else who said the exact same thing, that they like to sort of pick up the essays and kind of dive in there and then kind of go back and see how everything else fits into the picture. But in any event, I appreciate you all shedding light on, kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit on how you do this. I know sometimes we ask how long you spend reading a file, but we found that everyone kind of usually says somewhere between, 20 and 40 minutes. So we're kind of moved on from that question this time around. I did want to move into the next part of today's session. And that is what we're going to do is we're going to have each school kind of take the stage and talk specifically about one of their essay questions. And so what we've done here, panelists, is we have a slide, or in some cases 2 slides for to cover your essays if they spill onto 2 slides. And so what I would love to do, and we're going to start with Cindy at Berkeley. Cindy, I'd love for you to pick one thing here, one of these essays or the video, and just sort of talk us through why you asked this question. What's the kind of goal as an admissions team? Like, what are you looking for? And then just advice that you would have to someone who's kind of sitting down to put it all together. And I know you all have an admissions deadline tomorrow, so there may be some people looking for last minute advice, or maybe they're applying in a subsequent round. But yeah, so pick one of these and just shed some light on it.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about the video essay, which is brand new for this year. Every year we look at our essay questions and kind of think about what is it that we want to know that maybe we haven't been getting that information. And we decided that we really wanted to know a little bit more about the alignment with our defining leadership principles and values at Haas, kind of the why Haas. And we always seem to get that when we did our interviews, but we didn't have it necessarily in the essay questions that we asked. And so we decided we really want to know that. We want to kind of make it easier for applicants instead of asking them to write another essay. So we thought a video essay would be a good approach. I did get a lot of questions about it on the road. I imagine it has a bit of anxiety in putting that together. But I can go a little bit more into kind of what we are looking for. So certainly we're looking for that why Haas. So thinking about the answer to that prompt. So writing down some notes before you do the video essay is a great way to do that. Be authentic. So maybe you're writing down some notes, but if you write a script, it can be very inauthentic if you read it. So the suggestion is to maybe just try, it's kind of like if we were to ask you in an interview this question, obviously you're preparing for the why Haas, but you are communicating that in as authentic way as you can. So practicing is good, but not too much that it's inauthentic. And I think the other thing is just being comfortable and natural, and testing the technology before, so you know how to kind of stop the video and how much time you have as an allotment.
So yeah, and I know that is a new thing for this year. So I'll be curious to talk with you at the end of this cycle and see how, what the experience is with your admissions team kind of viewing these videos. I did want to shift gears and ask you about Essay 1, which you've been using for, I want to say, several years now.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, I had 2 questions. So one is, is there any recommendation in terms of how someone should think about approaching this? Do they make a list of different things they really enjoy? And then is it sort of jotting down notes? What advice would you have there? And then secondly, I think one of the things that I always think about is, are candidates going professional or personal with this? And I recognize that you're probably going to say, well, whatever makes them feel alive. But I realize I'm kind of curious, when you read these, is there any kind of pattern to this? Are more people doing personal stuff? Is it okay? Because I think some people think, oh, business school, I need to kind of, keep it professional. So yeah, just speak to that, because I think this is a really important question.
Yeah, so we've had that question for a while, and it really is looking a little bit more deeper at that individual and something that they feel passionate about that isn't necessarily what we see in the other part of the application. So a lot of times people lean towards the personal, because the professional, I don't know, maybe doing accounting makes you feel alive, but you kind of have to decide what's going to be the best for you. This question came out of an icebreaker we had with our admissions committee. And we just learned a lot from each other about each other through it. And we knew each other before, because it just kind of triggers, there's no right answer here. It's really about the why, not what. And so my suggestion always is very similar kind of what you're saying is the first thing that comes to mind. That's going to be something that's more authentic and real. Maybe that's not the one that you want to write about, but if you write a draft on kind of that first thing, and then maybe take it from there and having some advice from someone who knows you well, that it's an authentic answer.
Okay, super helpful. Yeah, I think these must be a lot of fun for you and your colleagues to read. And I cannot believe that it came out of an internal office kind of icebreaker. And I'm not going to steal any of Mandy's thunder, but I have a feeling that she's going to say something similar later on about a question in the Duke application. So, all right. So thanks for shedding light on that. I did. I feel like the video essay, before we move on to Eddie, the video essay, it did exist in kind of a written essay question in the past, correct? There was like a version of this that was more of a writing exercise.
Yes,
right?
yes. Well, we have another essay question and we kind of took that part out of it because we felt like it was kind of asking a little too much and we wanted to drone in a little bit more on this and make it very authentic and that people can kind of explain why they align with our DLPs.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I feel like you're going to get a lot of really great insight from the video and the first essay too. Just give people a lot of room to stretch out. All right, so let's move on, Cindy. We're going to now hear from Eddie at Cornell Johnson. And Eddie, I'm pretty sure we have 2 slides because we have the kind of goal statement stuff, and then your essay. I think we have an essay on the next page as well. So take us wherever you want. We can change slides, but let us know which of these you want to kind of highlight. And then we'll go from there.
All right. So I think the question that we get asked a lot is about our impact essay more than anything, and what are we actually looking for? So we'll start there with the impact essay. I think the way this essay came about is when I think about our community, when I think about our program, just living in Ithaca itself, we really do value those who are going to come into our program to make an impact. And we're able to really be able to, get a lot more from a candidate on how they see themselves coming into our community, making an impact in our community, whether that is leading clubs and organizations. Maybe there are things that they're doing within their communities now that the Johnson community can truly help them, expand and make an impact that way. So we want to know that candidates have really done their due diligence and really identified various ways that they see themselves coming in, helping this community grow, but also ways that we can help our students grow as well. So I think a way of looking at this is really, once again, just doing your due diligence and learning more, whether it is from our students, whether it is joining info sessions, whether it's learning about different ways that our students are taking on leadership roles, and thinking about ways that you will come in and make a difference in our community. So, I would encourage you, if you haven't, had these conversations or joined us in various virtual in-person events, this is a good way to really help a student to really answer this question. I know that there might be some who their passion may be, increasing, the population of our underrepresented population. And maybe there's something within different affinity groups or different initiatives that we have done within our community, and you want to expand upon that. That might be something where you see yourself making an impact, or maybe it is within your professional career interests of going into consulting, and maybe there's something within the consulting club, just to use a few examples. But once again, when I think about our community, we really want someone who's going to come in and make an impact, and they are able to show that in the essay, but also hopefully you can talk about that in an interview as well.
Okay, so just to kind of follow up on that essay question, it sounds like there are a lot of different ways that someone could go about gathering, the kind of background info to write a successful response in terms of outreach. So if they want to talk to current students, is there, I mean, do you have sort of an ambassador system? Is there an easy way for them to get in touch with current kind of, first or second year students? I guess second
Yeah.
year maybe is better.
Yeah, absolutely. On our website, we have a Connect with Students page, and there you will see our admissions ambassadors, as well as actually some of our incoming first years already, who are just looking to, even if it's just talking about their journey in the application process, as well as their experience within the first month of the program. But it does show their photo along with brief information regarding their profile, their background. Yeah, that's a great way of connecting with members of our community.
Okay, terrific. So yeah, so it's not like someone has to go to campus to do this research. There are
Right.
lots of ways, no excuses, lots of ways to reach out to students at Johnson. I did want to shift gears and go to the first slide,
Yes.
because you all have this sort of really unique approach on the goal stuff. Many MBA programs will ask people what their goals are, but I mean, you guys have this kind of short answer. Immediately post MBA, my goal is to work as a blank at company X and industry Y. And then you do it as well for kind of the longer term. And I wondered, any advice to someone who's worried that they kind of have an idea about what they want to do, but they haven't, they're not sure that there's just one company that they'd want to work for, or any advice there? I mean, and maybe just shed some light on why you're asking it in this way and stuff.
Yeah, so I think, when the reason why we ask it this way is because we really want you to get to the point. That is, I think what we found before is with some of our essays, talking about our short-term and long-term goals, it gave you the opportunity to write multiple pages. There were times where, a candidate just wouldn't get to the point, or we got lost in what their short-term and long-term goals were. So this allows us to get to the point of what is your target role, target company, target industry, and then also we do allow in paragraph form for you to elaborate further. I do believe that as you're going through this MBA journey in particular, I don't think that you have to know 100% on what you want to do, but I do think that it is important that you have an ideal of what you want to do. And once again, I think that there's other ways of really talking about it, whether it is, in the essay, then moving to the interview process where we can elaborate further. But, I don't believe that a candidate should get to this short-term, long-term goal and say, I have no idea what I actually want to do. Like, if it is consulting and that you're interested in, maybe you don't know particularly, what, part of consulting you're interested in, or even the financial sector, but you have an ideal of what you want to do. And some of the things that we will be focusing on are, what are those transferable skills that you currently have that will help you towards those goals, but also hopefully you're doing some networking and research towards those goals as you are going through the process of, your application process and thinking about the start of an MBA program. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And I guess the one other thing I was going to say is, I suppose the career office doesn't hold this document up to the candidate when they're graduating. They've accepted an offer at a company saying, wait a second, you wrote here Bain, but you're going to McKinsey. Sorry. So I presume there's some leeway here, right? It's just sort of an exercise.
Absolutely. I think, and of course, I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I think it's fair to say that for all, us MBA programs, when we realize that that's going to happen, we understand that you're going to get to our schools, and there's so many different options and resources, and your passions may change, and I think that's fine. But once again, this process in the application process gives us an ideal of, once again, what you want to do, those transferable skills. It also gives us an opportunity of also just being honest with with you, as far as, based off your background, you may or may not have a hard time in that recruiting process. And we want to be able to screen that in advance, but also, once again, have those honest conversations as you go through the journey, as far as what our schools, the MBA, can really do towards those short-term and long-term goals.
Okay, got it. Appreciate you shedding light on this. Hopefully it's helpful to everyone who's working on their Johnson applications now. Let's turn to Pat. Pat, I can't remember if we have 1 or 2 slides for you all. I think it's just the one.
This should just be the one.
Yeah, so just the one. So yeah, shed some light on one of these prompts that you have here and where it came from and what you're looking for, any advice if someone starts to write.
Sure, thank you. So I'm going to talk about SA2, and the reason that we, excuse me, that we asked this, I want to take you just quickly back to our 4 admissions criteria. So our 4 admissions criteria, we're looking for students who are smart, accomplished, aware, and encouraging. And everything in our evaluation process is anchored to those 4 criteria. Each part of the application maps to one or more of those 4 qualities. Things like smart and accomplished are pretty clear. You know, smart, we're looking at transcripts and your test scores. Accomplished, we're going to be looking at your resume and your extracurricular activities. But aware and encouraging are a little harder to quantify or kind of concretely put down. So we dedicate our essays to those 2 criteria, smart or to aware and encouraging. The first 2 essays, 1 and 2, go to aware. And essay 3 is designed to draw out evidence of encouraging. But I want to talk about essay 2, and that's part of awareness. And when we're talking about awareness, we're looking at awareness from 2 different directions. So the first part is forward looking. Where are you going? What are your goals? Why do you want one from Tuck? Why do you want an MBA from Tuck? And then the second part of awareness is more reflective and looking back at where you've come from, how your experiences and values have shaped your identity and your character. And that's where SA2 comes in, obviously. You know, we're really looking to learn more about who you are on a deeper level and how that might fit within Tuck. And that kind of goes to our ethos of being a community that's personal, connected, and transformative. Often I talk to candidates and they're like, well, how can I differentiate myself? I come from an industry that's heavily represented. I come from an area of the world that's heavily represented. It's so important to remember you're so much more than your job title. You're so much more than the industry you're from. And this essay really provides you that opportunity to differentiate yourself and kind of come off the page and talk about who you are as a unique individual. When answering this question, there is no right or wrong way to answer it. The types of answers that we get are incredibly varied. You know, this is really, you know, you and how you define yourself. So you might define yourself based on, you know, your life story or the community or culture you come from, or personal relationships that you've had with people, or your values set, or challenges that you've overcome. It's going to be different for every candidate. And what we're really looking for here is something that's honest, revealing, authentic. You hear that word a lot, but something that is uniquely personally you, that nobody else could write. And every single person has that story. Doesn't have to be a single anecdote. People can really compellingly weave together lots of different factors from their life and pull it together in one essay. So don't feel like we're only looking for one discrete story. You can pull multiple threads together. 2 things that I would advise you to avoid with this essay. While it certainly could be a professional experience and kind of how you define yourself professionally and how they've shaped you, I caution you against using this essay as a way to just kind of restate your resume. I see candidates sometimes just kind of give a background overview and they're put words to their resume. And that's really not effective because we're looking to learn more about you than just what's on the surface of your resume. And then the other thing that I see candidates do sometimes, they will list a whole bunch of clubs and activities that they plan on participating in at Tuck. And they think about that as how they will contribute at Tuck because of the things that they'll be involved in. That's great that you've done the research on those things, that you're aware of how you might like to get involved at Tuck, but that's not really what we're looking for with this essay. We are looking for who is the person that's going to show up on campus? How will your unique experiences contribute to the learning of your classmates, contribute to the environment at Tuck. So those are the two pieces of advice I've got, and I think I'll stop on that.
Okay. Well, that's super helpful. Like, I think you've shed a lot of light on, how one could approach this essay, and even some of those tidbits about this isn't like the time to list every club or activity you're going to be involved with. It's more about you and what you're bringing. So that's very helpful. I did want to ask you a question that I know I asked you before in another conversation we had about essay 3. And this one is, describe a time when you meaningfully contributed to someone else's sense of inclusion in your professional or personal community. And one of the things I was thinking about with this one was, so it could be about helping someone to feel included in your community. But I also wondered if it could be about, I don't know if calling out's the right word, but shaping someone who maybe isn't being inclusive to make them aware of the need to be more inclusive in a situation. And so I wondered, are either of those paths fair game for this essay?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you asked me that question over the summer, that was kind of the first time I thought through that second meaning of what the question could be. And
Yeah.
I think that both ways could be a very compelling essay. And I actually just read one the other day. I don't know if this candidate watched us this summer and maybe brought that in, but talked about their experience working with an individual and making that person feel included, but then also expanded what they did with that one individual to the rest of their team and how they brought that person to team. Now, I don't want everybody to go out and like, ooh, there's a great example.
Right.
I'm gonna use that.
Right.
I always hate to provide an example of an essay answer that was compelling, because then everybody tries to mimic it. And again,
Right.
your essay should be you. Your essay should be your experiences that only you can write.
Yeah, and it's an unpopular opinion sometimes amongst the applicant pool, but we often talk at ClearAdmit about how we don't recommend you read any essays, like sample essays, before you sit down and write, because you just invariably it shapes how you're going to approach things. So better off to go in cold and just you do you, and as long as you're following the prompt and answering the question, I think it's not a great idea to buy these books of like winning essays or things like that, particularly because often the people publishing the books don't actually know if it was the essay that helped the person, or maybe the person got in despite of the essay that they wrote. So anyway, moving right along. Thanks, Pat, for shedding all that light on the Tuck application essays. Mandy, let's talk a little bit more about Fuqua. Take us in whatever direction you want. We have another slide for your the other part of the essays here. So just let me know which one you want to talk about.
Sure. Well, we'll definitely start with our 25 random things about yourself essay. It's the one most talked about when it comes to Fuqua. We're the most different from, I think, any other application you might be considering as you look at your set of schools that you're thinking about applying to. And it's truly different, both in format and what we're looking for. So just know that our goal, and it's similar to many of my colleagues who just mentioned, we want to get to know you, the authentic you, the genuine you. What are you going to be like, not only in the classroom? What are you going to be like hanging out with us on Friday afternoon, on a trip abroad, on a service project? We just want to get to know you and what you're going to be adding to our community on a personal level. So when you see 25 things about yourself, please don't overthink that. We see many folks who say, well, but do I put all 25 into paragraphs? Do I do this? It truly is a list of 1 through 25. We want to get to know those facts about you. It can be in any order that makes sense to you. It can be completely random. It can be in chronological order, personal preference. We don't have a preference. There's no magical formula. We do ask that you still use complete sentences, and hopefully that, I know that might sound silly, but because this essay is so different, we get those that don't kind of give us fully formed thoughts sometimes. So make sure you're still sticking with those complete sentences, telling us why this is important. We are really wanting to get to know you. It's a pretty reflective process. I hear this from applicants all the time, that it is different, because you're sitting down and really trying to think back all the way through your childhood until now, and also your future goals that you might want to include here on the personal level. Try to stay away from work. Again, we're wanting to get to know you on the personal side of things. We have your resume, we have your recommenders, we have all of these kind of things. So we really want to get to know you on that personal level and learn, more about how you kind of fit into our sort of atmosphere here at Fuqua, the things you value. A lot of times people sort of tend to talk in the quantitative sense. I know you're focused on the quantitative sense throughout the rest of your application. They'll say, gosh, I have, been to 100 countries, or I've been to all 50 United States, like very specific quantitative facts. And that's fine, but I would encourage, you to really think beyond that. Think beyond what are sort of those basic facts and how this has had an impact on your life. So maybe pick one trip, for instance. You went to Italy and something really cool happened. That's what we'd really rather hear about, because that has an impact on you and it's going to look very different than someone else who also said, well, I went to 45 states. And what is the really big difference between someone who went to 45 or 50? So that's what we would like to hear, is more about how a fact had an impact on your life. If you're funny, be funny. If you're more serious, that's great too. We just want to hear that genuine voice and get to know you. We want to walk away and say, wow, that I now saw this person on campus. That's the person who, did this really cool triathlon in South Africa. This is the person who did this. This is the person who has 10 brothers and sisters. We want to learn more about you so that we can then see you on campus and see all the really cool things that you're doing. So be reflective, enjoy the process. I think this is one of those essays that can really allow you to enjoy the process of writing an essay in a little bit different way. Talk to friends, talk to family members, talk to colleagues, say, hey, what is something kind of defining about me? And then that can help you turn it into one or two other facts for yourself. I would encourage you to just kind of start on this process and continue to add maybe as you get ready to submit your application. Because sometimes, getting 5-10 facts might feel sort of easy. Getting to 25 can sometimes feel daunting. So take that time to really work through how you would approach that, and really getting to know how others would feel about you as well.
Okay. Yeah. And I think, I alluded to this earlier, but this question came out of something that you all were doing internally when a new team member would join the admissions staff, correct? They had to fill this out.
So all of us do this here at Fuqua, and by all of us, I do mean the admissions staff, actually not the entire Fuqua team, but those of us in admissions do it as well, because I think it's a really fun exercise. Anytime you make a big change in your life, it's nice to kind of take that stock, sit down, reflect a bit, help others get to know you in a different way, make connections that you might never have made with a colleague that until 5-10 years down the road, right? And so it's really interesting in that sense, and it is something that's pretty just kind of special to our community, and something that our students continue to talk about as alumni even. So it might come back. Things you might include in your 25 things about yourself application essay might come back as you're a student or an alum of the program.
Got it. So before I let you go, I wanted to ask you about another essay that you have, and it's what I would call the involvement essay. So sort of the Fuqua community. And I wondered, this talks about student-led government, clubs, centers, events, and all these things being a really big part of, the culture at Fuqua. And it then asked for these 3 ways you expect to contribute. And one of the things I was wondering is, does this always veer towards the kind of clubs and events and kind of what I would characterize as extracurricular stuff? Or could someone be excited to bring a certain viewpoint or set of experiences into the classroom and some of the classes they're planning on taking? Or should this really strictly be kept to the kind of extracurricular side of ththings?
For us, it is typically a bit more community driven. We were looking to see that like was mentioned earlier in one of the other panelists, we want to see how you've gotten to know our community. Where do you see yourself getting your MBA here? But also, where do you see yourself contributing during that time? Sometimes in, but outside the classroom. I will say sometimes folks do a really nice job of tying in things that might happen in the classroom, or some of our sort of special trips or experiential learning that sort of go from the classroom to out of the classroom. So there are some sort of connections points there that people might include some classroom activities as well. But we're really looking more for some specifics about our community, not just sort of maybe characteristics of yourself, but how you would bring those characteristics into some very specific areas of our community, and truly making that connection to not only why an MBA now, but why an MBA at Fuqua. What are those specific fit areas that you see for yourself? But they could range. They could be club driven. They could be service driven, maybe leadership through other areas on campus. it really is a huge range of what we see. Some folks even come up with some amazing sort of passion projects that they would want to share that would be new with our community as well. Maybe it's a place where they see that we don't have that space already. So there's a mix. There truly is going to be a mix there, and there's no one magic formula. But I would lean a little bit more outside of the classroom, kind of as a general rule, but there may be some crossover.
Okay. All right. Appreciate you, helping us to better understand that one. Megan, you've been super patient because we went alphabetically. Washington's towards the end of the alphabet. But why don't you take us through, I know we have 2 slides for your program as well. So point us in the direction that you want to go and just tell us about one of your essays, where it came from, what you're looking for, and tips as someone goes to craft it.
Sure. I'll talk about the resilience essay because this is a newer essay, and this was birthed from our conversations with our MBA career management team. And one of the things we found is that we have a very high job placement rate, but that means sometimes students come in thinking, oh, it'll be easy, jobs abound, and that's not really how it works. Most students are going to have many rejections before they finally land that internship or land that job. And that can be very difficult, a very difficult time. And sometimes the students are seeing other people get jobs and they think, when's it going to happen for me? And it feels risky because you've left your job. So there's just a lot of emotions around that. And we really wanted to bring in, a cohort of people that are very clear about how they perceive challenges and have really great problem solving skills, maturity, motivation, comfort with failure, knowing that's just going to be part of it, and a growth mindset. So those are the characteristics that we're looking for from asking that personal resilience question. And that can be a professional example or a personal example. We lean towards wanting to see a personal example since we have some professional information about you elsewhere in the application, similar to some other schools. We have received questions about how personal is too personal. And I do want to say that whatever is in your application is confidential, and we're not looking for opportunities to judge your particular situation. We're looking for opportunities to see how you have been able to overcome and achieve despite some barriers in admissions. I think traditionally the industry has looked at achievements, but we're really interested in seeing, what barriers have you overcome, because that's probably a bigger indicator of your likelihood of success in the program, as opposed to just the achievements. Everyone starts out in a different place, and it's okay if you've had a major catastrophe in your life. And also, we're not asking you to relive any trauma. So if this is, something that's too personal and you don't want to talk about it, don't feel like, you have to go there. That's totally up to what you feel comfortable sharing.
Okay. Yeah, appreciate that. I mean, I think we read a lot in the press these days about grit and resilience. And so this seems like a really great question to be asking. I want to turn and ask you about the first question, which on the surface is kind of a career goals post MBA kind of essay, which, many of your peers on this panel ask, or some flavor of it. But I wanted to call attention to the fact that this question is a little bit longer. You're giving them 750 words, which is a bit longer than some other kind of career goals essays. And there's this specific notion of like, what are the gaps or deficiencies that someone is, kind of wanting to fill in by coming to get an MBA at Foster. So could you shed light on like, where does that come from, and any advice on, how to go about sort of taking stock and writing this?
Sure. Yeah, we do ask that question because, again, job placement, or the ability for students to achieve landing a job after the program, that's very important to us. And we feel like if you have done your homework in terms of understanding what your future career path is going to look like, and how you're going to get there, and how you would use your time at Foster to get there, that gives us some reassurance that you'll do your homework also while you're in the program. It also helps us understand if we can meet your needs, because just one really good example, sometimes we get people who are interested in aviation, and we have 2 Boeing manufacturing plants here in the Seattle area. But if you do your research, then you will learn that we don't really place students at Boeing full-time MBAs don't go there. Boeing has a really great program where they sponsor MBAs. And so there are a lot of MBAs in our evening MBA program. And so there's just little things like this where we can kind of tell if you've done your homework on what we have to offer you. And we want happy alumni. So we want to make sure that we're able to help you achieve your goals. And let's see, anything about this. In terms of doing your homework, our website, obviously, come to some admissions events. Our students, I would definitely say, speak to the students. They're not on our website right now, but we do have events called Student Connections where you can sit in a Zoom room with a student and ask them questions alongside other potential applicants. Of course, read LinkedIn. There's also some great information on our MBA career management website about career paths. And you don't have to stick to your original goal. As we talked about earlier in this session, if you end up changing your mind, that's fine, but you should have a plan A and a plan B and maybe even a plan C, maybe a reach goal and like a very realistic goal, because we just want to make sure that you know what a potential employer would expect from you and what kind of skills you'll need to work on in the program in order to achieve the goal that you've stated.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, really, I always learn so much when I get you guys to answer these questions. So hopefully our attendees are really finding these comments insightful from you all as we go on here. Let's move on to the last segment. And just to remind everyone, we're going to do this last segment, which is kind of a lightning round. So I'm going to ask our panelists to give like really, kind of concise responses to these fun questions. And then what we're going to do is send our panelists off into their individual Zoom rooms. All of our attendees are going to stay here with me for another minute or so after that while our panelists get set up. And then we'll give you guys the link so you can go and chat with our panelists and ask them all of your individual questions as you work to assemble your application essays and materials for their round 1 or round 2 deadlines. So let's stay with you, Megan, so that we can go backwards through the alphabet for once. What's one essay no-no that you would like to share with our audience?
Oh, I know this has already been stated, but the biggest thing I can think of is just make sure that it's not your resume and a list of achievements. Make sure it's a story. I would focus on, 1 or 2 things and make sure that you are clear about the points that you're trying to drive home. Show, don't tell, essentially.
Great advice. Mandy, how about you? One essay no-no you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, so it sounds simple, but when folks don't actually answer the question. You've heard a variety of topics from this group of folks today. And so many folks will get these beautiful essays, right? They're beautifully written, but do they actually answer the question? That's something that folks sometimes don't always do, or maybe this goes hand in hand trying to use an essay from another school and repurposing it for our program or to another one, vice versa. And so really make sure you're answering the question. I always say the best tip to make sure you're doing that, give your essay to a friend, not just for a grammar check, but remove the prompt, remove our prompt or whoever's essay you're writing, take that prompt away. Once they finish reading, say, hey, what was I asked to do here? If they're not
Yes.
close to what our question was, you did not answer the question well. So yeah, really just answering the question. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah. And I can tell you, I don't want to speak for all of our panelists, but I feel like when I used to read in admissions, you can tell when someone's used an essay that's A, not answering your question, and B, is from a peer school. And it really is kind of annoying because it suggests that you're like second fiddle to the school that they are taking the essay from. Pat, any no-nos you want to highlight with essays?
Yeah, well, so Mandy took mine because I think that's a huge no-no. I'm going to throw in one that I've started to see more and more in the last year or two is people trying to cheat the word count by using hyphens between words. I can see when you do that, and it's really a lack of awareness, and it's not, those extra words are not going to overcome the impression of you've tried to cheat the system.
Yeah, we did spell no-no with a hyphen. I hope that was okay.
No, that's okay because I'm not counting your words, but when you got 300.
Yeah. All right. Eddie, how about you? Anything that you would tell people to avoid with essays?
Make sure that it's coming from you. So I know that there's a lot of people out there that I'm sure would love to be paid for writing essays, for an applicant. But I think, we stress about being authentic and genuine, and no one knows your story like you do. So, make sure that you do take the time to share your authentic voice, in that essay, because also a lot of times, what you write in that essay, does come through in other stages in the application process. And we want to make sure that things match up and of course, make sense.
Yeah, great advice. And I would just like to remind everyone, folks like Eddie and others on the panel, they're often reading more than one file in a sitting, right? So you might sit down and read several applications. And so it really helps when people are being authentic and telling stories that are unique to their candidacy, because it keeps things interesting, right? So keep that in mind too. Cindy, I hope everyone didn't take all of the ideas. You can pass if you want to, but maybe you have a piece of advice you want to give.
Yeah, I put down a couple, so I was hoping that no one would take it. But mine is actually about the optional essay. I think that the optional essay is optional. And one thing that I've seen, which I think is a real no-no, and it's similar to what Mandy was talking about, with they take an essay that they thought was really well written and great from another program, and they'll put it in there just because they, I guess, spend a lot of time on it. But I think editing kind of your application, not doing too much information, that's kind of a no-no for me.
Okay. Wow. Good advice. Cindy, let's stay with you for the next lightning round question, which is, I just thought it'd be fun to ask each of you to kind of bust one myth about the MBA admissions process. I mean, we hear all kinds of amazing theories on Clear Admit's Livewire, where people are convinced that you're, issuing interview invites by the first letter of each candidate's middle name, or, they come up with amazing theories about stuff. So I thought it'd be fun to help shed some light. So Cindy, anything you want to talk about here?
Yeah, mine's a bit more general about that. I think there's no perfect application. I think for some reason people think that if they read all the books and they do everything right, that it's going to be perfect and that's going to be a winning application. And the truth is, everyone has strengths and weaknesses. And I actually really appreciate when I see some of those areas of growth in an application.
Excellent. Eddie, a myth you want to bust about MBA admissions?
Yeah, I would have to probably talk more about the outreach to admissions. I think sometimes candidates feel like, all right, I can't reach out to the admissions team, or they're too busy. Which, yes, we are busy. We're staying busy reading, but we want to tell more about our program. We want to share more. We want to answer your questions. So as you go throughout this journey, make sure that you reach out, because I know that there's a lot of blogs out there, and sometimes when I see stuff about the Johnson community, for example, I'm like, I don't know where they got that information from. Reach out to us. So know that we're available.
Okay, great advice. Pat, how about you?
Yeah. So I hear so often people come up and apologize and say, well, I come from a non-traditional background. The myth is you have to have a business background to go to business school, and absolutely not the case. We have an incredibly diverse class from every industry, every educational background, every part of the world. So don't feel like you have to be this cookie cutter investment banker from a particular region.
Great point. I studied art history as an undergraduate and ended up going to business school. So, and the co-host on the Clear Admit podcast always makes fun of me for that, but it's absolutely, you can do whatever you want with your undergrad and then still go to business school, which is what I love about business school. Mandy, how about you? A piece of a myth you want to bust?
These are all great ones folks have been bringing up so far. I know I was trying to going down my list of things here. I think one of them would be that you have to visit the school for us to, consider you, right? We know everyone's coming from very different circumstances, from very different parts of the world, financially, whatever that means. So there are ways to connect with us, which we've already alluded to, whether it's through virtual sessions just with our schools, whether it's through alumni in your area. But really, we're using that time for you to learn more. Like, is this the right place for you? How is this going to more anecdotally impact your application, not just for us to check the box? Oh, this person's had 4 events. This person's been to 18 events. It's more for us to help you learn more about our programs, so that you can better represent yourself and best find the place that's going to be a good fit for you.
Okay, yeah, that's a really great one, and very important given the geographies that you all target, being across the world and people's just different circumstances. So great advice.
Absolutely.
Megan, a myth that you would like to bust about MBA admissions?
Sure. And I can't speak for other schools, but I know here we sometimes have people that feel like if they get their application in round one, they're more likely to be admitted. And that actually is sometimes not true because they're not ready. And as much as we try to say, apply when you're most ready, we end up sometimes having to issue a deny to someone who might have been very competitive during round two. They just, their application wasn't ready yet. So take your time, maybe shoot for round one. But then if you're not ready, it's okay. Just wait for round two. It's not going to make a difference.
Okay. Wow. Great advice. So last question, and then we'll let you guys slip off into your individual Zoom breakouts. So in honor of Duke's 25 random things prompt, I thought it'd be fun to get a random fact about each of you. So Megan, we'll go with you first and work our way back. So what's a random fact about you?
Sure. I performed at a conference on Carnival in Trinidad.
Oh, wow. Excellent. I love this question. Mandy, how about you?
Yeah, I feel like I have the most pressure. Like I should have some amazing, like life-altering fact here since it's our essay. That being said, I'll say the one that I usually bring up, and most of these types of sessions are ones we do just for Fuqua, is that as a child, I thought it would be the coolest thing ever to teach myself how to juggle. No idea why. So I can still juggle. I've juggled in Fuqua's Got Talent here on campus. I now mostly just entertain my toddlers at home. I can juggle balls. I've done snowballs outside. So that's my little hidden talent.
Excellent. How many things can you juggle?
Just 3 at once.
3 at once.
But I
Okay.
can do a team. If I have someone else who can juggle, I can do the team juggling.
Wow.
So
okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's excellent. Pat, how about you?
Well, now I feel really boring. I'm just going to throw in honor of Graham. Actually, I lived in Paris for a year when I was in college, and it was a incredibly transformative experience being away from home and seeing the world.
Excellent. Eddie?
So members of my community know that I'm a music lover. And one of the things on my bucket list was to go to the Grammys. And my wife and I won tickets off the Ithaca radio station to the Grammys back in 2014, all expenses paid for. So always love to share that.
Oh, that is so cool. Cindy, how about you?
So aligning with what Eddie said, I actually was a radio DJ in high school, and I think that's one of the reasons why I love music and live music too.
Wow, awesome. All right, so just in the spirit of this, I guess I will offer one too, just to, because I want to play along. So for me, I would say, okay, I performed in a rock band at CBGB's in New York City when I was younger. So which was a kind of really cool music venue that's since been closed, but in any event, so there's mine. Lots of music stuff with Cindy and Eddie, and very cool. So what we're going to do now is let our panelists slip off and get into their individual breakout rooms. I did want to thank Eddie, Pat, Megan, Cindy, and Mandy for your time. Enjoy your time now taking questions with our attendees. Really appreciate you guys doing this, and it's just always a lot of fun. So thanks a lot. We'll let you guys slip off now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Graham.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Always a pleasure. So everyone stay here with me for just a second. We're going to get you guys links so that you can go and ask questions of our panelists. They're all getting set up in their individual Zoom rooms. We just like to give them a minute. And so fear not, I actually have something I want to talk to you about for the minute while we're waiting. I think most of you probably know this, but if you go to clearadmit.com and you create a user account, which is free, you get access to a whole bunch of other content that you cannot see when you're on the website as just a regular visitor. And what we call this extra content is just Clear Admit Plus. So I definitely encourage you, if you've not registered on the site, or if you registered but you forget to log in, you should come into the site and log in, because it opens up a bunch of extra content. And I think I have a slide here that just kind of highlights what those things are. One of the things that I love is the Admissions Academy. It's this set of videos that I made with Alex Brown on our team, who hosts the podcast with me. And it's basically, there are 25 videos. Each one is less than 10 minutes long, and they're each about a key aspect of the admissions process. So again, you register on clearadmit.com, which costs you nothing. You can watch all these videos that'll help shape your application. We also have a data dashboard, which allows you to use Livewire and the other tools on the site in more sophisticated ways. Like you can do some analyses of all the data that we have there, historical data on like who's getting interviews, who's getting admitted based on their statistics. We do a private webinar series. The next one is October 4th at this same time slot, where Alex and I spend an hour just answering your questions. So you can, if you're registered at clearedmet.com, you can sign up for the monthly Zoom that we do. And then finally, you get access to a lot of our publications. So we have a recommendations guide, a resume guide, all these like key pieces of the process where we're giving you step-by-step guidelines. So check out these resources. We really appreciate you using the site. And yeah, again, it's just no reason not to register. So come on over to the site, clearedmet.com. The last thing I'll say is that next week we're doing this again, and I'll be joined by admissions representatives from Carnegie Mellon Tepper, Columbia Business School, Georgetown McDonough, University of Texas, Austin, and University of North Carolina, Kenan-Flagler. And then the week after that, I'm going to be joined by, I want to say it's Michigan Ross, Wharton, Yale, and UVA Darden. I hope I got that right. But in any event, so come the next 2 Wednesdays in a row, we're going to be doing these with a different set of panelists. I think Mike on my team here is going to share the links if he hasn't already. So we'll get you those links so you can jump on and chat with our panelists. Keep in mind, you can only go to one at a time. So, you know, if you want to talk to Haas, go over there, ask your question, and maybe after it's answered, you can jump into another one. So maybe copy and paste these links. You should get an email with all the links. And I think we're also going to post them here in the chat. I recommend you copy and paste them because again, if you want to go to multiple chat rooms to talk with them, you want to keep your hands on them because you won't be able to see them here once you leave this Zoom. So in any event, check your email. You should have them there, but we'll also post them right here. They're coming up right now. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that many of you are, late at night or early in the morning or middle of your workday. Always appreciate you all making time for Clear Admit and to join these sessions. So hopefully we'll see you all next week or over on the website. Thanks again for all of your time today and best of luck as you apply to business school.